As Trevina mentioned, we've been working on what has been determined the Phase 2 work. And generally speaking, the things that we're looking at is the seismic upgrade to the building. And this is a tremendous amount of the effort that's gone into the building to preserve it so that it won't be subject to some of the future earthquakes that we might have. It's a particularly difficult piece, but the goal is that at the end of the day, you'll never know that we did the work from the historic spaces within the building. And that's the hard work that I'm mentioning that Carlos has been so critical in leading to knit the structural, and there's a significant amount of steel that we'll be adding to the building to do that, and we're working with Arup, as Trevina mentioned, to do that. The exterior of the building, as Trevina mentioned, will continue the work that was done on the very top of the tower. We'll continue down the tower. We'll continue on the exterior on the window areas and the building openings as well. The interior public spaces of the building, those beautiful old spaces that we were just looking at, those spaces will be restored as part of the effort during Phase 2. There's the tenant spaces on the second and third floor that are currently not occupied, but obviously have a lot of the old partitions and old carpeting and old ceilings. That will be all cleaned out, and we'll make it code ready for a new office tenant by the time we're done with the contemporary. Part of the canopies, you may be aware, was restored in the 90s with metal, and we'll be continuing that restoration going around the building. And finally, the cladding on the exterior, as I mentioned briefly. So looking quickly at the exterior, there's two elements I wanted to point out. One is this element here, which is the enclosure for an escalator that was added in the late 1940s, early 1950s, when it was decided that train travel needed to compete with the jet age, and so they would do that by installing an escalator in the building. Unfortunately, it really blocked a critical connection from the Jackson Street Plaza down to the King Street Plaza. Maybe many of you had that challenge today when you were trying to find out where to meet, in fact, for the tour. So that will be removed, and the escalators will be removed, and the historic stair that was there will be reestablished, and that connection from the plaza down will be reconnected. In fact, this is one of the very first things that will be visible in the next several months as we proceed forward. And here's the historic drawing of the area. You can see there's the canopy, and there's the stair behind this area that would lead right to the compass room and entrance to the station. The other element is that on the south side of the building, you can see here, Amtrak has added a enclosure to help them handle some of the baggage facilities that they need to manage their activities. You can see another picture of it here. Again, that will be removed as we relocate some of those Amtrak functions within the first floor of the building. Again, we're going to talk more about that in just a moment. Excuse me. These diagrams are a little faint, but I'll just start here first. A number of the historic openings, particularly at the first floor, have been altered over the years, and they've been closed, they've been changed. And one thing we're endeavoring to do is to reopen all of those historic openings and put new and replica wood windows that would match the historic windows that would have been there. Likewise, on the upper portion of the building, you might notice that some of them today are aluminum, some of them have vents that go through them and other things, and those will all be replaced again with windows that will replicate the historic windows that were there. These are just simply a series of diagrams that we did to indicate the windows that would be restored going forward. The blue are the window openings. Red are openings that we're altering slightly to accommodate some of the new functions, and the green being the canopies that would be restored. The red on the top is a piece of the terracotta. The work on the tower was begun, but it certainly wasn't completed under Phase 1, and so we'll be continuing with that. This is some of the critical terracotta repair just below the clock tower portion. These are just the other two elevations that will be, again, illustrating the areas that will be improving, I would say, the openings. We're restoring them back to where they were historically. The Jackson Street Plaza, which is the area that was historically a parking, or is currently a parking lot area today. Historically, it was an open space that did provide drop-off functions for the station, and it was lined by 22, I believe, of these historic fixtures that had these globe fixtures on top of them. We affectionately refer to them as the Gumby fixtures. But you can see that over time they cut them off about halfway down. You can see the stubs that remain today. They installed this fairly aggressive fence, which is not required. So this will be removed. Unfortunately, and we'll see in future photographs that some of the deterioration that these cast iron pieces have suffered over the years means that we won't be able to restore them, but we will be recasting these out of iron in the future to replicate them if and when the funding becomes available to do that. So the plan that we've been developing is I think Trevina mentioned that we're creating an open space amenity. We're really trying to create an edge. This area, as you know, when you walk around, it's a scaleless space, and so we're trying to provide something that will add a softness to that edge. These will be cherry trees that will pick up on the International District idea, provide a very strong connection to that stair that will take you down to the Compass pathway, and an open space. And at the time, we see this a very flexible open space that would be available for perhaps one of the tenants on the second floor here that could spill out with tables and chairs for a cafe function. Perhaps it's a farmer's market, perhaps it's any kind of display or community event that wanted to occur in that space. And so looking a little more closely at the plan, the large portion of the area here, we're proposing to do a decomposed stone, a very fine stone, not unlike it is at Jameson Park in Portland. If any of you have visited that area in the Pearl District, they've got that same blonde stone area that creates a nice soft environment. We'll have a small bosque of trees, as I pointed out earlier, to the north, and then this very strong connection to the stair that will lead to the Compass room. And then critically, there's an entrance into the building at this level that will be restored, providing access to the tenants that may be there, but also to the elevator, so that it will be an accessible way to get down from the Jackson Street level of the building. This is a photograph of one of the stubs. You can see the extreme deterioration that's occurred and the cracking that's occurred. And so we will, when we remove these, we will store them so that we have a way of, and archive them so that we'll have a way of making sure that when we replicate the Gumby fixtures, we'll be doing it as accurately as we possibly can moving forward. Down at the King Street level of the building, historically, it also had a drop-off function and a little bit of chaos, as you can see. And that chaos really does continue today. It's very interesting if you watch the traffic patterns in this area. That all the taxis seem to go kind of in the opposite direction of what you would hope for them. And then, of course, the cars that are backing out into the oncoming traffic from these parking areas don't help the situation. And there's large buses trying to do three-point turns, any number of things. And so we looked very carefully at how we could revise this and improve this area. And to do that, we've looked at several things. One is that we've kind of realigned we have realigned the curb, and we're creating, I say curb, it's not going to be a curb as much as it will be a change in the paving pattern, and we'll use a combination of planters and bollards along the edge to define that zone to help facilitate people that are coming and going from the station with bags and things of that nature. We are using a copper-colored clay paver unit, so it will be a warm texture, paving texture beneath. And again, we're going to we're desperately going to insist that the taxis operate in this fashion and kind of move around and then head out in that direction.